Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Zero to Empire podcast. In this episode, I have Tim King, and he's a sales and leadership coach, and he's going to be talking about what inspired him to become a coach, as well as his background and how he actually got to where he is today. So, Tim, great to have you on the podcast. And my first question to you is, what actually inspired you to become a sales and leadership coach? How did this all begin?
It wasn't as much inspired as it was kind of fell in my lap. Uh, Over the course of time, I've done a lot of different jobs and positions in sales and marketing and stuff. And I was looking for a change, and a former coworker of mine who was a sales trainer at an insurance company, she reached out to me and says, "Hey, are you looking to do something different?" I said, "I don't know. What are you thinking?" She's like, "Come be a sales and leadership coach for us and teach sales and leadership and training and everything else." And I'm like, it's not something I do, And as we went to kind of go backwards through my work history and talk about different things, I did a lot of that. It just didn't call it that, right? Helping people to achieve or teaching people how to do a certain skill or job, things like that. It just wasn't something that I didn't equate it to the word coaching like she did. So it was kind of an eye-opening experience to go back to that and be effectively inspired to be a coach.
That's awesome. And what kind of experiences shaped your mindset before coaching?
It's a lot. I mean, everybody you come in contact with can shape your experience, right? So, I've been fortunate to have, a good family, good upbringing, a lot of good people along the way that have helped kind of shape and inspire me. Even today, I do a lot of I'm not necessarily a reader, so more of an audiobook kind of guy, but, a little bit of reading, a lot of audiobooks, a lot of podcasts, a lot of, video blogs, and pick up tidbits here and there to kind of continue to shape and grow.
That's solid. And before this, when you talked about your background, you talked about both sales, insurance, and e-commerce. So what were kind of some of the background behind that, but also like some of the lessons that you got from those chapters in your life?
Yeah, boat sales was interesting because that was the first time I'd ever done, other than just like, a bike shop or something like that, done true retail sales of a luxury item. It's not something that people need. It's something that people want. And dealing with customers in that manner of they come in with very different, needs and desires. I'm trying to help them. So that was a different and a welcome change, a welcome challenge. Insurance, it's the old saying, right? Everybody needs insurance. Now, it's understanding the difference between property and casualty and life insurance, and then how to go about explaining to people why life insurance is important, and how that can make or break somebody depending on what could potentially happen in someone's circumstances. So that was a very different experience. I would say the biggest things that shaped me was probably the insurance side of things, because that was truly the first time I was kind of my own business owner, and got to kind of, yes, I worked in a framework and a company, but it was my own office, right? And I kind of had to just manage myself. And that was one of the first times I experienced that is okay, the only person that's going to challenge me to get something done is me. So here's what I got to do to get things done. Here's what I got to do to hit my goals and things like that.
That's solid. And when it comes to getting into the whole coaching realm, like, was there an exact moment or like a situation that you helped somebody and it got you to realize that you were a good fit for coaching?
I call those aha moments. It's usually those moments with clients to where they're like, it's almost like they have a breakthrough, right? So, for example, coaching someone who is kind of resistant to change, So for example, we work on something called an ideal schedule. It's basically, if I had a perfect week, this is what it looked like, right? You put that down on paper and you try to hold yourself to it as best you can. Doesn't always work, but that's okay. But knowing when you have blank spots in your schedule, you can always go back and look at that and depend on, that to say, okay, here's what I should be doing. in teaching a client that technique, very resistant. I use my calendar. I'm good. Until finally it was like, just all of a sudden came to me, was like, I understand now why you were, explaining how to use this, because here I am just basically, because I'm doing my calendar on a regular basis, I've got more time in my life, and I'm looking at these blank white spaces now and like, what do I do? And he's like, I started going, oh, that's right. The ideal calendar, ideal schedule. So by starting to fill some of those things in, he was just so much more productive.
Oh yeah, having a calendar definitely helps with productivity. And when it comes to the people you work with, who is your ideal prospect slash client?
Ideal is wide and ranging. So with Southwestern Consulting, we've got about 200 coaches worldwide. So with that, we've got a lot of breadth of talent. We've got people that are coaching CEOs, people that are coaching entry-level salespeople. And we can coach entry-level leaders, somebody who's been a great salesperson but got promoted to a leadership position and is kind of like struggling because they just almost a fish out of water, right? So we can help them with those kinds of skills and soft skills there too. But my favorite client is small business owners. I love working with people, kind of got a little bit of background in strategic planning and kind of when I got my master's, I kind of focused on that type of thing. And I love helping them plan how to grow their business and scale their business. It is so much fun to watch them, see, okay, I can push this lever or turn this dial or make this change, and things just blossom. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's super solid. And when it comes down to the way you help your clients in the coaching sessions, what does that actually look like?
What we do is minimum of a year with a client. We want to see them through all 4 seasons. We do 2 coaching sessions a month. So 2 1 hour, 45, 55-minute sessions a month. In those sessions, it'll be, we usually hop on a call and go through kind of like, good news. Hey, what's some good things been happening as related to things you've been learning and coaching and putting into practice, right? Then we'll kind of get into the idea of, what else has been going on in the world? How's life, how's kids, those kind of things, because you can't separate the business side from the personal side. It just doesn't happen. Then we usually try to figure out kind of what are their numbers, what kind of numbers are they tracking, and how is that tracking, looking, what ends up being the ratios. If they're in sales, by making, a bunch of leads, generating a bunch of leads, how do those leads end up closing, and what's that process look like? Then we'll kind of cover what we talked about in the previous coaching session with like action items and things to bring to this session, some training depending on where they are and what they need, and then kind of go from there, figuring out some action items and wrap it up with letting them know when their next call is. And that's kind of that's the agenda of how we kind of go through things. So they know what to expect, we know what to expect, and makes it go really smooth.
Yeah, that's an effective strategy for sure. And when it comes to your coaching test, like stories that you've gone and helped with, like people, what's a powerful story that stood out to you?
It's a good story, but also kind of a sad story. Client, young fella, was working for a company where it kind of one of those companies when you walk into like a Costco or something like that, and somebody says, "Hey, are you interested?" Right? That was his job. So fun working with him, trying to get him to understand kind of scripting and kind of that neuro linguistics and how to talk to people, how to recognize what kind of personality they are, so you can kind of match them as far as your personality there, so it's not like well in water. But through that, we started talking about vision. What's his vision for the future? And he early on said, eventually I want to have enough income to where I can go buy a farm. You want to be a farmer. You want to be a sustainable farmer. Okay. So now we're working towards that process. Well, unfortunately, that process led him to go back to school. And so going back to school wasn't necessarily then in his plans as far as coaching then. So I lost him as a client, but I really feel like it was very rewarding because I helped him kind of figure out, where I am today is not where I want to be. where do I want to be and how do I want to get there? And school is a big part of going back and getting that degree to kind of help him jumpstart his, future professional career.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's awesome you're impacting lives such as him. And when it comes to what you wished you knew before your first coaching gig, what would you tell yourself?
Um, it's one, I knew it would be fun. I didn't realize how much fun it would be. It's fun to help, serve people. It's fun to see people grow. Sure, it's challenging because not everybody wants to grow. People say they do, but then they don't really want to dig in and do it sometimes. So that can be frustrating. But yeah, the rewarding. I mean, it's when you get to see somebody, really make changes in their lives, whether it's, not my story, but another coach's story where they didn't see their family, very much because they worked all the time and were able to rearrange their schedule and get some time management, really increase their productivity during working hours. So that way it allowed them to be present with their family in the evening. So things like that. I mean, it's just so impactful to people. And again, we don't claim to be life coaches or anything else, but I'm sure we've saved more than one marriage along the way because of it.
Wow, that's awesome that you're able to do that. And where can people interested in your coaching come out and reach out to you by?
Well, I mean, obviously, LinkedIn. You can look me up there. I think it's Tim King MBA. I'm sure we can put a link in someplace or whatever. But so LinkedIn, my contact info is there. That's probably the best way. Is reach out and message me there, or I've got a calendar app on LinkedIn where they can just book a 30-minute call with me to kind of sit down and tell me what they're thinking, and I can ask a few questions to figure out if it's fit.
That's awesome. Everyone, go check him out. Go check his free consultation call. And for everyone watching or listening in, thank you for being out or listening and doing that. And I'll see you on the next episode of Zero to Empire.